This video will contain spoilers for the first 8 episodes of Maul Shadow Lord. As of writing this video, only the first 8 episodes have come out, and so only contain information from those 8 episodes. With Maul Shadow Lord's first season almost finished, many of my fellow Star Wars content creators have been focusing on the Inquisitors. There are 2 members of the Inquisitorius in Maul Shadow Lord that we've seen so far. First, the first brother, Marrock, and the 11th brother, the Crow. Now, both characters have been seen in other Star Wars shows before, where each of them are shown dying at the hands of Ahsoka. Although Marrock seems to have been revived with Night Sister magic, and the 11th brother just became a cloak. But it's kind of symbolic if you think about it, how Maul and Ahsoka battle in Clone Wars Season 7, and then Ahsoka's the one to kill both of these Inquisitors for good, and yet we're also seeing them here fighting Maul. Especially considering we know that Maul and Ahsoka never fight again after this point. Now, because of these shows, the 11th brother is commonly considered the weakest, or at least one of the weakest Inquisitors, because he lost to an unarmed Ahsoka. But the opposite happened to Marrock. He is currently being hailed as one of the most powerful, possibly stronger than even the Grand Inquisitor. And the Inquisitorius can be hit or miss in terms of an individual's power. The second sister, for example, is miles above the 13th sister, 10th brother, 6th brother, or the one Inquisitor in Tales of the Underworld, in terms of dueling and force abilities. Of course, we also can't forget about the Holy Trinity, the 8th brother, 7th sister, and 5th brother. The point is that most Inquisitors are poorly trained, mainly due to the fact they were taken as Padawans before being recruited to the Inquisitorius and getting additional training from Vader and the Grand Inquisitor. Now, the Inquisitorius mainly faces weaker opponents, Padawans and some Jedi Knights, some Masters, but whenever they fight these immensely powerful Force users, it's often in numbers. When Vader kills Jedi Master Eth Koth, it's with a group of Inquisitors. Same with his battle against Farron Bar. This is to say that it's notable when an Inquisitor can prove themselves to be incredibly skilled on their own. That list is small. I would say Marrock has earned his spot on it among the Grand Inquisitor, 2nd Sister, and possibly the 9th Sister. Now, we'll get back to Marrock, but I quickly want to cover the 11th brother just because I think it's incredibly important to talk about his actual strength, though I don't know if it warrants an entire video, and I certainly don't want to talk about it later. So, the 11th brother, the Crow, loses to an unarmed Ahsoka. So he's clearly not that strong, or at least he was taken by surprise. However, this season we see him roughly holding his own against Maul, so I think the hate for him is a little undeserved. But quickly, let's get back to the actual core of the video, which is Marrock versus the Grand Inquisitor. Like Generation Tech says, Marrock is very committed to his tasks. He goes in, does his job, and leaves. Other Inquisitors feel the need to insult their opponents or take pleasure in what they do. He just aura farms, so to speak, and hunts down rogue Jedi. And he's certainly in the top 3 in terms of power scaling. I would even say top 2, right behind the Grand Inquisitor. But we'll get to that later. I just don't know if he stands out that much. The evidence that has fans saying that Marrock is the strongest Inquisitor is really only tied to his appearances in Maul Shadow Lord and Ahsoka. They're also the only 2 pieces of media where he really has anything to do. He's known as the first brother, and many construe that to mean that he must be a top Inquisitor. Notably, the other contenders for best Inquisitors are 2nd Sister and Grand Inquisitor. It's certainly notable that the top 3 Inquisitors would be the Grand Inquisitor, First Brother, and 2nd Sister, considering those are the 3 highest titles in this number sequence. However, other than those 3, I don't actually think it plays into power scaling. because the ninth sister is much stronger than the fifth brother, but it's at least something to note. In Ahsoka, Marrock holds his own very well. He's shown to be a little bit weaker than Ahsoka, and he clearly recognizes that himself. He flees from his first fight with Ahsoka, even though the fight had not yet shown a true victor. Ahsoka is at the level of a Jedi Master here, and it's impressive how he manages to hold his own at least. But he is defeated in the end, and a wisp of green smoke emits from his body. This points to one of two things, either a full revival, or at least an enhancement from the Night Sisters, who are present in Ahsoka Season 1. Going all the way back to Clone Wars, Savage Opress gets this similar treatment. We see green smoke emanate from his dying form, and it really just points to the fact that Marrock has likely been augmented somehow by the time of Ahsoka. We can't go solely off of his abilities and prowess in Ahsoka because he was fighting at a level much higher, or at least somewhat higher, than he was before this enhancement, or revival, or whatever it is. Going to Maul Shadow Lord, Marrock is seen fighting incredibly well against Jedi Master Daki and Devin. And no heat to them, but they aren't that impressive in terms of their lightsaber abilities. So I also don't think that's that much of a feat. But then, what about when he fights Maul and Devin? Well, he clearly holds his own, and the fight does end in a stalemate, but Maul is obviously holding back to test the abilities of Devin and show how Marrock is evil, how strong the Empire is, because he is trying to convince Devin to be his Padawan. And even though the fight is a 2v1, which I'll talk a lot about later because a lot of the fights in Maul Shadow Lord are 2v1s, Maul and Devin pretty much only attack the first brother one-on-one. It's very rare for them each to be attacking him properly as a team. And of course, Devin here is still only a Padawan, and really just an average one at that. And then his final act is defeating Maul, though he's fighting with the 11th brother. And this fight is harder to talk about, but I think it's also important to note the apparent weakness of the 11th brother, although he does seem to be a lot stronger in this show. Whatever the case is with the 11th brother, Marrock is fighting alongside another Inquisitor, and a 2v1 is never going to be easy for the one. But Maul's in a tough place emotionally, and his cybernetic leg was damaged before the battle began. It was literally sending pulses of electricity through his body. So, I feel like we can't really give Marrock too much credit here either. The main reason I wanted to make this video is because of another video by the Stupendous Wave and a couple of TikToks. Now, most of them cover all the things I've just said, even if they give Marrock more credit than I, but how they differ is in their opinions of the Grand Inquisitor. Many creators say that Marrock seems stronger than the Grand Inquisitor because the Grand Inquisitor is somehow shown to be kind of weak, and not really having any strong feats. This is based on a whole separate list of events, so let's look at each of them like we did the ones for Marrock. First, the Grand Inquisitor loses to Reva. But if you watch the scene, he doesn't. He gets stabbed in the gut by an ally of his, which is Reva, and he doesn't even die. And from how he comes back, it doesn't even look like there was a doubt in his survival. He was always in control of the situation. He was basically backstabbed, even though it was technically a front stabbing, by Reva, and he came back and was basically the reason for her downfall. The other really big thing that people have talked about is his fight with Kanan Jarrus. Kanan was still, for all intents and purposes, a Padawan at the time when he beat and killed the Grand Inquisitor. So, the Grand Inquisitor losing should mean that he isn't that strong, right? I mean, he lost to a Padawan, basically. But again, it's a 2v1 with the Grand Inquisitor being the one, and at the beginning of the fight, he isn't even trying, which we know based on his line.
At last, a fight that might be worthy of my time.
He's just toying with them, testing them. His stance the entire fight exudes confidence. He's not worried at all. And then, after Ezra appears to die, Kanan locks in and starts fighting back at maximum capacity. And he pushes the Grand Inquisitor back a lot. He clearly has the right of way in this fight, and he has the offensive. And it means that eventually the Grand Inquisitor is standing on the edge of the platform they're on. And in this moment, where Kanan has had an emotional connection to Force, he has his whole speech about how he has nothing left to fear, all that, he manages to corner the Grand Inquisitor and causes him to lose his balance, which leads to him willingly dying. But what if the platform had been larger? What if the Grand Inquisitor had more time to regain his footing and take back the initiative? I imagine that with more room to work with, he could have taken advantage of his superior skills that we know he's possessed from his fights with Jocasta Nu, Kanan, and other Force users. The Grand Inquisitor was a Jedi Temple Guard, which is already a feat in itself. And he knew all the forms of lightsaber combat. He knew how to counter each one. In his final fight, he didn't get bested because he was outskilled or outmatched. He lost because he literally didn't have the room to operate. And Kanan managed to have probably the strongest connection to the Force he had throughout the entire show. Not to mention, he was able to take advantage of a crucial weakness in the lightsaber design of the Grand Inquisitor. The Grand Inquisitor simply assumed that spinning defense would be enough to protect him long enough to regain a little bit of his footing. But of course, there was that gaping hole in the middle of the saber. Funnily enough, that's actually exactly how Darth Vader managed to take out the Grand Inquisitor when they first fought on Coruscant. I don't have a problem with Marrock being seen as one of the strongest Inquisitors. He objectively is. He is well above the skill of most we've seen. But to look at the feats of him and the Grand Inquisitor without the context behind them is flawed. The Grand Inquisitor had his title for a reason. He was the first Inquisitor who truly fell to the dark side, and he was actively part of the reason that Operation Nightfall could even take place, as he killed majority of the Temple Guards, according to the Revenge of the Sith novelization. Mind you, again, the Temple Guards were among the strongest duelists in the Jedi Order, second only to the Council. So, the Grand Inquisitor is incredibly powerful. Marrock might have been the strongest out of the numbered Inquisitors, but the Grand Inquisitor was a different breed of warrior. Not quite to the level of Darth Vader, but still up there. Likely stronger than even some of the Jedi Masters that we've seen. Thank you so much for watching. I have been Purge Trooper Productions. I hope you've enjoyed this video. We are so close to 1,000 subscribers, so if you could subscribe, it would help out the channel more than you know. Also, happy May the 4th, though this video might come out after that date. And we shall see if the next 4 episodes of Maul Shadow Lord 2 coming out on the 4th, aka tomorrow, I'm recording this on the 3rd, changes this video. Now, again, have a great day.